The boys are back. Breeders' Cup pre-entries are out. We're here to talk to you, Aaron, Jared, Mike, Somich, and Magic here. And boys, first of all, good to have everybody back. Breeders' Cup time is officially here. Aaron, are you ready for it? You ready, buddy?
Definitely, yeah. I've already done the videos for you, Magic, so you can post them up. Right when the pre-entries came out, I was excited. I was up at 5 this morning, getting all the morning work done to have all the rest of the day for the Breeders' Cup. So yeah, beyond excited. As I look through these, I'm pretty excited for it. I think we've got a Breeders' Cup that's going to be an amazing betting situation this year.
Yeah, this is so many races where the favorites you look and go, I mean, maybe they'll be 3-1, 4-1, and some of them are like, I really want to try and beat these favorites. So lots of races to choose from. Let's jump into it. Jared, Mike, I'll let you guys say your piece here in a second, but let's look at the Breeders' Cup Classic. First time in my time following the sport, there's also entries for the Breeders' Cup Classic. Like, usually this is like 7, 8 horses. No, we've got 4 horses on the outside. Now, of course, 2 of those first preferences for the dirt mile, and then we have a turf horse in here, King of Steel, who may or may not even come to America for the Breeders' Cup at all. They're still waiting to make that decision. But, Jared, what were your first thoughts here on this massive pre-entries list for the Classic?
I mean, I don't. Yeah, kind of. You said I don't really. As far like, oh, I hope that horse gets in or anything like that. I don't think really that's going to be an issue. But it is kind of the bigger picture is like, yeah, I mean that makes sense because I mean we've talked over and over all year long about this classic division and it just lacks any kind of real star, especially from the older horses. And it's kind of showing here that you have a list of horses like, hey. You know, a lot like I feel like a lot of years, Saudi Crown would be a horse that you may just be like, you know what, let's go to the dirt mile and then we'll go to the Saudi Cup like that. But this year it's like, well, shit, why not? Let's try the run in the classic because the horse is good and look at the field. And so I think you're going to see that a lot with a lot of these horses. I like to. I didn't know for sure if Dermot would end up coming, so that's cool that we got 2 Japanese horses. So I'm going to guess if I do go Japan in this race, I'm going to pick the wrong one. But no, it is cool to see. By the way, a lot of horses that got those. I'd like to see like a lot of those dirt mile second preferences. Right, Future, Charge It, and Mage. I love to see Charge It in this race. It's hysterical, but yeah.
Yeah, Mike likes to call that instant takeout or easy takeout, right? Actually, for the there it is, juice takeout. By the way, like you were talking about, Jared, there's 2 Japanese horses, so now we have to play. Oh, it's the other Japanese horse. We got to go with that angle, starting in 2023 for the Dirt Classic. Speaking of that, Mike, you've got a 3-year-old son of Wooten Bassett that literally just ran a couple of days ago. And they decided to pre-enter for both the Turf and Classic and say, we might not come. I mean, first of all, it must be nice to have that kind of money to just decide, we'll just figure it out later. But your thoughts here on the Classic and the Turf horse King of Steel at all?
Yeah, you might as well get your name in the entry box and see what happens. I would expect if he does come over, he's going to run in the Turf, not the Classic here. You can see the first preference there for the Turf. And I think, you mentioned we've got AEs for the first time. I think that kind of echoes what Aaron said, where this is a really good betting Breeders' Cup. And we don't have the flight line. We don't have that superstar in here that's going to go off at 1-5, 2-5, right? We've got a really even betting race. Probably going to see a favoritism in a 3-year-old. It's the first time, and it's weird to even say this, the Classic is kind of like the Boulevard of Broken Dreams race because you go through this list, you got Xandon, and you've got Proxy, and you've got White Abario, and you've got Dermaso Tagate, even Mage since the Derby win kind of fits into that same profile. Obviously, you've got Arabian Night, Archangelo, and Go Rocket Rider. I think of all phenomenal 3-year-old seasons here. But, I mean, even Charge It in this race is kind of humorous to me as well. So, a really interesting group here. Definitely not the best group we've ever seen for the Classic, but definitely one of the more competitive ones we've seen in the last 4 or 5 years.
Not to mention, it is so fitting, too, this year that we have 2 races after the Classic, 2 Breeders' Cup races after the Classic. So, even to further your point, it's like, oh, yeah, the Classic, and then let's run the other ones, because let's just get through this one. It definitely feels like it could be it's a perfect year for them to try this out.
If you want Aaron's thoughts, Aaron, I would throw to you, but if you do want Aaron's thoughts, you can go get that over at youtube.com/racing dudes here in probably about an hour. He went through this and the Juvenile to kind of talk about it here. But I feel like Charge's second preference should have been Dirt Marathon, not Dirt Mile. Like, that's a horse that's not really talented enough to win either of these races. But throw him in the Classic, I guess.
I have a question for you guys before we move past the Classic. Just now seeing the 2 Japanese horses in the race, I'm curious, like, who do you think will be the lower price between the two? I think it's
Ushba.
Ushba,
Ushba
but
easily.
you have
Won't be close.
Derma. You have the Derma hype from the breeder or from the Derby season, and everyone's going to be pumped to see Derma back. But I mean, obviously, I do think having Derma in the race is going to help the odds on Ushba a little bit.
I think the problem is, even though Derma didn't run all that poorly, like on paper, it's going to look like he ran poorly over here. So I think that will cause him to be 15, 20 to 1. I think Ushba will be like 5 to 1, maybe. Just a guess.
Magic, you want to talk about Ushba? It's your boy.
I have a video you can go watch about it. Yeah, no, I agree that he will be very much. I think he was trading at third price right now overseas, which, by the way, Bovada, those sneaky bastards, they pulled down their odds, so you can't bet on it right now. So they finally they got beat by Mike Somich one too many times. I said, okay, we need to actually pay attention to what the hell is going on here. But I gotta say, the funniest comment I've seen so far, where is it, from Kevin B? He says, why are we previewing undercard race? Get to the turf sprint because of football and TV scheduling. The sprint and the turf sprint follow the classic, which, by the way, Mike, BCBC, that you've got to be super excited that some extremely wildly unpredictable race like the turf sprint is right there at the end of BCBC instead of the start. No, we're putting it at the end for you now.
Yeah, you're definitely not out of it going into these last 3 races here, because the classic, I think you might be able to get a price, and then you go into the sprint and then the turf sprint. Both of them going to be wild finishes there. The doubles, probables, and the sprint to the turf sprint are going to be absolutely crazy, especially if you get around elite power. So going to be a fun final 2 races there. I'm not a big Caravel fan in the turf sprint. I think she's probably going to be your favorite going in there. So I'm looking forward to having that as the last BCBC race.
All right, let's take a look here. The Breeders' Cup Turf, and no surprise, we're going to have multiple pages here. First, here are the horses that drew in. 3 from Aiden O'Brien, 1 from his son Donacha, and then over here, Master Foxhound, Adamo, and Cellist kind of on the outside looking in. Everybody's first preference in the pre-entry spot is for this race, so they're going to get in here. You've got Up to the Mark. You've got Warlike Goddess, and then a whole bunch of horses that look really devastating from overseas. Jared, we're going to hold off on your thoughts for this because you're going to do a separate video on the turf. Aaron, I'll let you start. Breeders' Cup Turf pre-entries thoughts.
Yeah, get to work. Get going on.
That was like a subtle, like, stop and send me your video, please.
Right. It's like go look at all the random horses and all the random YouTube videos you're gonna have to look up on these horses because
I appreciate it. I can't even pronounce like a quarter of this field, but thank you.
And look, some of them we know and we're like, okay, and then some of them show up and it's like, I gotta really get to work on this. So look, I mean, Magic, I mean, I remember back when they had it at Keeneland during the COVID year, and we got these pre-entries, and you and I went through them, and we just got to work, and we absolutely crushed the turf races because the Europeans won, and we found a few we really liked, like Tarnawa, so that's what we got to do here, right? I mean, this is how it is right now in the United States. Our turf horses in every division are pretty, now Up to the Mark maybe could win this one, but you look at these European horses, and I know he's beat a few European horses. This is a massive field of them. They're everywhere. And so we got to get to work. We got to figure it out. There's a lot of time, though, and that's good news. You're going to have to work hard on this race. This race, more than any other, you're going to have to go to YouTube. You're going to have to get on the replays, and that's my afternoon, folks. So that's about all I can say about it as of right now. I mean, what a great field of international horses we've got for this race, though.
I don't know. I just listen to Rodney, Mike. But Rodney just says it's Mostadaf. That's easy. There's your single. Take it home. That's it. Aaron's making it seem so complicated. Rodney's got it locked up.
Yeah, Rodney guaranteeing Mostadaf draws the 12th post. So just like other Breeders' Cup years, the best European draws the absolute worst post in all these turf races. This is a fun one, man. I'm excited we get Broom back. Mr. Broom, looking forward to seeing you run again. I mean, at least we have the 2 best American horses in the race, right? Up to the Mark and Warlike Goddess. They're at least the only 2 that could actually compete with a field like this that are in the U.S. right now. We'll see if Warlike Goddess has lost a step or not. Get Smoking, kind of funny that one's in there as well as Balladeer, but we'll see. We'll see what happens with those 2. This is going to be a fun race. I mean, this is probably one of the ones I look forward to the most. Aaron hit the nail on the head. Look, you got to prep for these type of races. You got to go to YouTube. You got to watch replays, and you have to go into it with as open of a mind as possible. One of the things for me with Breeders' Cup, the keys is not to have your Breeders' Cup horse before the actual Breeders' Cup entries are out. You can have preferences, but if you pick a horse before you actually look at the form, that is a recipe for disaster a lot of times, because you don't know who else is going to be in the race, how the pace is going to set up. And sometimes that doesn't allow you to get to the long shot in the race that you could. So you got to make sure it's okay to have opinions. You got to make sure you're able to move off those opinions in certain cases, depending on post position and who else draws in. And this is a case where, I mean, there's some monsters in here. If you haven't seen Shirar, the Japanese horse that's coming over, that horse is very, very good as well. So don't just assume this is going to be a European horse that's going to be able to win this race. And Up to the Mark, I mean, look, I realize this is a loaded field. He was phenomenal off the layoff. And so we'll have to see kind of what you expect him to run back at here, going a little bit further, 1.5 miles at this time, going further than did at Keeneland. So to me, this is one where you're going to have to dive into it. You're going to have to watch a lot of replays, figure out which Aidan O'Brien horse you like. And then if you think the U.S. contingent has a shot, and don't overlook Japan here, because I think Japan could have a big Breeders' Cup Turf shot here.
Jared, I will let you say one thing. There was a question from Duckman. Warlike Goddess, she was in the turf last year. Is this her third year going after the turf? Anyway, Duckman's question is why Warlike Goddess isn't in the Filly Mare turf against her own gender instead of going to the turf, which is a very tough field here.
I don't know, really. I mean, I guess just I think it's the distance is just they wanted the longer the better for her, which still, like, the Filly Mare turf is what is it, 1 mile and 3/16, something like that. And so, I mean, it's not like that one's short, but I don't know. Like, I've kind of been off of her. She obviously beat me last time out. I'll let her beat me again in this race. I'm not overly concerned. By the way, I don't know if do you have it? I don't know if you have I've seen some questions about the post time, or like the order of the races. Do you have that? I can read them off. So the classic is race 9, and then the race 10 is the turf sprint, and then the last one is race 11 is a sprint, and then you do have a race 12, which is to be determined, obviously. But so the sprint is actually going to close things off, but that the turf is going to be race 8. That's going to be one hell of a pick 4, pick 5 going into. I mean, the classic is just the middle of it, so. I assume they're going to play, and then, of course, if you want to play one into race 12. But I've seen some comments about that. Turf sprint, or the Juvenile Turf sprint on Friday kicks things off there. Then you have the Juvenile Fillies Turf, the Juvenile, and then the Juvenile Turf. So the Juvenile Turf closing things out. I think they've been doing that the last couple of years.
Nothing ever goes wrong in that race.
Well, we made a comment on Blinkers Off last week, or I did, and you kind of alluded to it, Somich, like, last year it wasn't last year. When did Modern Games, get
2 years ago?
Scratched.
2 years ago, Del Mar.
And I had come into that race kind of thinking I wanted to pick an American horse, and I can't remember who it was off the top of my head, and I kind of gotten just like, that's it. Like, I don't think the internationals are very good, and I'm not going to really go into it too much. And then Modern Games, and thankfully Haltern was smart enough to look. I think you guys were on him too, but I just kind of was like, no, I'm not playing him. And obviously that was dumb because I didn't go dive into it big enough after the entries came out, after he had gotten to the race. And so that's just like a very basic example of why it's good to have an idea, have a blueprint of kind of what you're thinking. But then especially those turf races, you got to dive in and study the forms and study the replays and really get an idea. Because I mean, that's really what whenever for me, whenever I was going through Maj versus Elusive Princess in that, Keeneland race, I went through and watched the replays closely and just said, had an opinion hey, I think Maj looks a little better. But that's really all you can do, and especially with these turf horses.
Real quick before we move off the turf, a question for all three of you guys, because you guys are generally a little bit better at this than me. We always talk about in California, the turf is significantly more firm than on the East Coast, and they have these Europeans coming over in California. How are they going to handle the turf? Magic, I think you did this 2 years ago when it was at Del Mar. Do you remember the stats for European horses on the turf in California versus in Kentucky? Or Aaron, I think you might have done this as well.
I know that Santa Anita has played historically a tad tougher than like when it's at Churchill, Keeneland, Del Mar. I remember when Del Mar specifically, the Europeans brought their horses over and they're like, oh man, this is great. We love this, at Keeneland and Churchill during the fall. It's not really what they run on, but it's more like what they run on, right? It's a little bit, of a soggier turf course, a little bit longer. I think they've come over here and won at Santa Anita, but I don't think they win quite at a high as a clip as where they're at some of the other places. This would be one of their tougher situations.
And this is one of the more derfier turf courses that we have in the Breeders' Cup mix, right? I mean, when you compare it to Keeneland and Churchill and Del Mar, this Santa Anita turf course is much more firm than the other ones that we're talking about.
Yep, exactly.
Which I think is super interesting. The fact that you have that, whatever, how do you pronounce it, Magic? Mustadaf?
Mostadaf? I'm not sure either.
Most Def, we call it that. Most Def.
Yeah, Most Def.
There you go. Most Def. I like it.
But, that they scratched that horse out overseas because they wanted a firmer going. And now they're obviously going to get very much so that here at the Breeders' Cup.
All right, Breeders' Cup Distaff, another field that looks really loaded. They might have made one adjustment because I saw they reposted. Oh, no, it's the same thing. Okay, Breeders' Cup Distaff. Bob Baffert has a Dare Manor in here. She's been killing it on the California circuit against what? Well, we're going to find out here in this spot. Lots of 3-year-olds. Chad Brown has a couple in here as well for Klarovich. Mike, your initial thoughts on the Distaff, buddy?
We talked about this in the Magic Mike show. The big question for me is, can Eddie O'Matic get loose? We've seen this race collapse in the past because of all the speed that's in it. You don't have as much speed that's signed up this year. Specifically, you got to look at randomized and search results, the two Chad Brown horses, whether or not they're going to go. But I think that is going to be the big storyline here, because if Eddie O'Matic gets loose, she's got a good shot at going gate to wire here for Brad Cox.
That's why they repost. I saw they reposted the graphic because they typed up West Paint. All right. That's not me. That's from the Breeders' Cup. That's where I stole that from.
There is a very, I agree, Idomatic could very well be the speed of speed, but man, if you believe in pace meltdowns, this could be, Clairiere should be screaming coming off the pace, but can she actually do it? That's another question.
Yeah, that's a big one. I mean, she's struggled routinely at Saratoga, though, in the past. So if you like Clairiere, like I know that Dr. Miranda does, she did a video talking about why she likes Clariere's chances for the Distaff. And like you to talk about in the 14 Trends video, Jared, Clairiere is could be a pace meltdown, and she has the class here because we have no Nest. So if you take Nest out of the equation, who's the classiest horse in this race? It's Clairiere. She's done really well. Aaron, any thoughts on the Distaff before we leave this one?
It's a popcorn race, meaning just go get your popcorn. You don't need to see it. I think this is one of the worst Breeders' Cup races I've ever seen, to be completely honest. It's horrible. It's a horrible race.
It's a great betting race, Aaron. It's a great betting race.
The sad part to that is this is the best we have.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like they just didn't show up or something. Like, no, this is it. This is this is what we got, other than Nest, I guess, Nest and Secret Oath, who had to be, had injuries and be retired. Those are the two, right? But even if they were in the race, you wouldn't be like, oh, that's better.
No. It feels like it'd be fitting that Hoosier Philly wins this race.
It would be fitting because I'm so against her.
After everything that's happened this year, all the hype early, never really able to deliver. Then she sits here in this spot where she could be the second, or she could be the horse sitting the perfect trip. And then we'll see if she actually can kick. She hasn't been able to in the past, but it would be kind of fitting if she wins this one. I think Pretty Mischievous also a little bit interesting for me.
You know what's really just kind of ironic or odd or however you want to phrase it? You've got Clairiere, who I think everybody on this feed, she's a lovable horse, right? She's just one of those horses you love. She's had all these races in her career where there's been like 3 or 4 horses in the race, and she has no pace. She finally looks like she's got the perfect setup, but we haven't seen Clairiere run. Well, we really haven't seen her run, period. But when's the last time she's run a race? You go, dang, that was really good. Like June. April. So it's like if you came into this race like you had normally come into it with that form, you might just dominate. But it's like I don't really know what she is anymore. Has she just kind of quit? Is she going to run huge? Because if she runs her normal race, Boom, we've got the perfect setup finally for a horse that never gets the perfect setup.
Chris Mello says, Leda Vita is French for I'm going to win $1 million if she ever changed her mother-loving leads. She might actually have a chance to win this run.
She has a perfect setup for this race.
She does.
I'm very curious of Adair Manor. Just because like that'd be another one where you're like, really? I mean, I don't think she can. I don't think she's good enough. But another horse that was a ton of hype. Then obviously you wonder what she's gonna, what she's been facing, and running in a field like this. But one's gonna have a lot of pace.
I can't wait for her to take money.
Yeah, I'm not gonna be interested in her either.
Kevin B says the Argentina horse is scratching Sod on Twitter. That would be Belleza de Artiega, who is actually been with Marcelo Polanco, who trained Blue Stripe, who almost won it at Keeneland last year. So too bad to hear about that, because I know he does really well with a lot of those Argentinian mares when they come up. Breeders' Cup Mile, of course, no surprise. This one's going to have a lot of interest. 4 on the also eligible sheet here. 2 of them might get in because in Italian, first preference, Filly and Mare Turf. Not sure about that. Up to the Mark, first preference for the Turf. That makes perfect sense. Aaron, I guess looking at this, are you surprised that in Italian's first preference is Filly and Mare Turf and not here? And Gina Romantica's first preference is here and not Filly and Mare Turf after what we saw at Keeneland?
Yeah, a little bit, but I think within Italian, it's just a situation where we've been caught going a mile, and maybe they think, hey, our speed will be a little bit tougher to catch at Santa Anita. We can go a little bit faster, get a little bit more distance from that second place horse, and maybe that track will carry us the last 16th of a mile. I've been thinking about in Italian where she's going to go. I think her biggest problem is she's lost a half step, and I think that's going to get her either race. When you think about it, you're going to most likely face a ton of pace pressure in this race compared to a race going a little bit longer. So I think they made the right decision there for her. Listen, Gina Romantica, I was extremely impressed. I thought she ran well, but this is a different kind of situation. She's up against it. This is another one. Get ready to do a lot of homework, because there's a lot of horses in here that you're going to have to go watch. I am super excited. Songline came. I think that's going to be very interesting to see her run. So pretty dang exciting race.
We have a video for this discussing this video this race, more in depth coming later. Thankfully not from me, from someone who can speak. Vinny Blond will be doing that. So check that out. Should be coming out, I believe, tomorrow on the YouTube channel. Jared, is a race you don't have to do a bunch of homework for the site initially, but you are going to have to do it eventually. What is your take on the Breeders' Cup Mile?
Man, I'm super pumped for this one. I think it's going to be. I'm pumped, and I'm also dreading it a little bit because I don't know. There's so many options. Majla was awesome last time. I'm glad they chose the mile. I think that's smart. Master of the Seas, obviously, can't take a lot of defeat or out of him in defeat because I thought Up to the Mark ran huge, and you've got the Casa Creed, which I know Somich will be betting hand over fist on at all his BCBC entry. Will go on him, I'm sure. But no, I just, and then Songline, like Halterman mentioned, I just think there's so many options in this race. And they're, it's like you would love to have seen Master of the Seas dominate last time out, and you have a lot of confidence, but you kind of go into here thinking, okay, I do think he is the best, but still, like, there's a lot of other horses in here that could upset him yet again.
Yeah, it's just
there it is, Mike. Casa Creed sighting in the chat.
This is just a fun race, man. I mean, even like Casa Creed has got, I'm not going to say a legitimate shot, but an outside chance to be able to win this and be a heck of a way to cap off a phenomenal 8-year-old season for Casa Creed. So we'll see what happens there. In Italian, deciding for the Filly Mare Turf, I think makes sense. I agree with Aaron. The speed going longer, I think, is much more difficult for those horses to handle versus horses going a mile, where we know that you're going to have a little bit more pace in them early and still have some kick late. Songline, phenomenal horse coming over here. Going to be fun to be able to see that one run here in the U.S. Master of the Seas, Maj, both very good performances. Paddington, we'll see what happens. And I wouldn't even sleep on De Jour, who's been a very good miler in California for Bob Baffert. It's the one Bob Baffert turf horse I've ever considered to bet. And this is one that actually, with the best effort fits here. We haven't even mentioned Gina Romantica, who's coming off that dominating or very nice performance and going a mile as well. So just a lot of fun here. You're probably, like you said, Magic, you're going to get a couple that draw in here. More Than Looks has looked phenomenal for Sherry DeVoe. Master of the Foxhound somehow still running for the Phil D'Amato barn. Actually ran well in California the last couple times. So just a fun, wide open race. This is one where if you come up with an opinion, you're probably going to get paid. And if you have the guts to single this puppy, this is going to be a separator race because there's going to be a lot of people spreading quite a bit here in the Breeders' Cup Mile.
It feels like, I mean, every year, obviously, exotics pay well at the Breeders' Cup just because it's Breeders' Cup, tons of money in the pools and a lot of options. But this year, more than ever, it feels like not really that hard. I mean, not that hard of an exacted hit or whatever. I mean, it's going to be hard. But if you have an opinion and you can get an exacta home, you can pay. I mean, these things are going to pay big in these races just because it's going to be near impossible to connect on exactas.
Last year we had 7 horses that were 7 to 5 or less the day of the entries. How many horses are we going to have under 7 to 5 this year? 2. It's going to be very, very different than what we saw last year from a just a favorite perspective. Not saying the chalk was winning, but the lowest price on a lot of those races was 4 to 5, even money, 6 to 5, 7 to 5, right? I mean, Flightline 1 to 5. We're not going to have that this year at the Breeders' Cup.
Nope.
Certainly not on Saturday. I mean, who? I mean, I guess Elite Power will be a pretty heavy favorite.
I mean, Cody's Wish and Elite Power are the two that I think are going to be shorter on Saturday.
But I don't think they'll be 7 to 5 morning line. They might, but
who was the first one? Who'd you say first?
Cody's Wish.
Oh, well, yeah, Cody's Wish,
yeah.
I mean, but even Cody's Wish, I mean, when we get to the dirt mile, there's some challengers in there. It's not like that's a slam dunk thing.
Nope.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Well, a race that might have been considered a slam dunk until she unfortunately was injured and retired. She is doing well, Echo Zulu, but the Filly and Mare Sprint pre-entries, Goodnight Olive might be a short price for this 7 furlong race. Mike, I consider you kind of the 7 furlong dirt sprint expert here. So your first thoughts on the Filly and Mare Sprint pre-entries?
Yeah, Goodnight. You want to bet Chad Brown at short price in the dirt in the Breeders' Cup? Go right ahead. This is a wide open race. I mean, to me, this is one where you could go a lot of different directions. I thought Kristen Bosch looked really good last time out. I've had some love for Matarea multiple times. Beat Goodnight Olive a few back. Yuguri, your girl Magic, been running phenomenal. So this is another one where it feels like, again, absolutely wide open from a betting perspective. Post position is going to matter quite a bit here. A lot of times we've seen this race collapse and you end up with a big time price because you're going 7 instead of 6. So make sure you focus on who can get 7 furlongs. And I wouldn't mind looking at horses cutting back from a mile distance into the 7 furlong versus the one stretching out from 6 to 7 with speed, because this is a race that can fall apart late a lot.
We live in a society. Aaron, what are your thoughts on the Filly Mare Sprint?
I'm gonna try to beat Goodnight Olive. I don't really know with who yet. Haven't made that decision, obviously, but I kind of echo what Somich kind of laid out there. You do kind of see this thing kind of fall apart at times. I think with Goodnight Olive, she just does not. The form's not really there compared to last year. She came into last year, she was kicking everybody's ass. She comes into this year, I mean, it's not that great. I mean, she was not competitive with Echo Zulu. She got beat that race at Churchill by Matarea. She won a race at Belmont, but it was like, that really wasn't that great of an effort from you. She just hasn't seemed as dynamic, as, talented this year. She catches a field, though. She should beat, but
not great.
It's not great at all. But you just look at the horses like it kind of reminds me of Jackie's Warrior last year. You looked at that field and you said, you know what, Jackie's Warrior, he may not be at his best, but he'll beat this group. That just doesn't happen. You got to be at your best to win at the Breeders' Cup or you're going to get beat. I'm afraid she's not at her best. So I'm looking to beat her.
Yeah, this is an interesting race from a trends perspective, which, by the way, a shameless plug. Go get the 14 trends. Are available now at the website racingdudes.com. You get it for free if you buy the Bible or if you are a premium subscriber. So it's available now. But one of the cool things, I'd say one of the 100, the ones that are 100%, this is a trend. There's never been a gate to wire winner in this race in 16 years. So it's just been one of those weird races. Even Gamine, even when she won it that year, she kind of came off of it, if you remember. And so it's just, and then she tried to go gate to wire. It didn't work. And so it's just a tough race to go gate to wire. which sets it up nice for a horse like Good Night Olive. I don't know though. I don't feel good about playing her at a short price, like you guys said.
My early prediction here: Godolphin Blue wins it, either Carmel Swirl or Mare. I think they got a really good chance with one of those two in here. But very intriguing, a great betting race like we've been talking about for the Breeders' Cup. The Filly and Mare Turf has a really nice field here. Chad Brown with 3 entries in here, with the Moonlight for Charlie Appleby, Warm Heart coming over for Aiden O'Brien. Lots of outside horses, international horses, and then closing remarks from California, because why not? He's been doing okay out here. Aaron, Filly and Mare Turf pre-entries thoughts, buddy?
Overly excited. I mean, I think this is going to be just fantastic. One of the best races on the card. The whole Breeders' Cup. I just think it's so intriguing. You want to talk about horses here locally, in the United States. I think Didia ran extremely well over this turf course last time out. Fed Rover at times can jump up and just run a massive race. And you do have an Italian who, listen, she's got a ton of class, even though she's lost a couple in a row. But Kulik, we got some good ones, but guess what? The international horses in this race look outstanding, starting with Inspiral, obviously a horse that I think everybody's super excited about, but it really doesn't end there. And that's kind of the theme, right, of these turf races. We got big European horses, overseas horses, and it's like, oh, here's a horse from Japan who looks pretty good on paper. Oh, here's another one from Europe who looks pretty darn good. Time to get to work, but this is an amazing field. I can't wait for this one.
And you got Moira running in it too, who's going to be a crowd favorite as well, which I think is an interesting addition to this field. So we'll see how she runs. Lindy, another one that running in the U.S. but has that international breeding. But yeah, this is Win Maryland. I mean, Warm Heart with the Moonlight. This is going to be a fun race here. And again, another one that you're going to have to put a lot of work into, because the U.S. contingent actually has a shot here. But man, you're also bringing over 4 heavy hitters from Japan and from Europe that are going to play a role here. So this is going to be another absolutely fun race.
I mean, it's just wild to me that you have. Okay, so I'm going to list 5 horses, and you say we do the top 4 in the betting Bible, right? One of these horses has to be left off of your top 4, and that's in Italian, Inspiral, Warm Heart, with the Moonlight, and then say Didia or something like that, or say McCulloch or Luminar Rock. There's a bunch in here. Like, this just doesn't feel like a race that's going to be. It's going to be near impossible to come up with a top 4 that you can trust, and it's just. I am so excited. This is the one I think I'm most excited for, because just to see Inspiral versus Warm Heart. And then, not to mention in Italian, I mean, oh yeah, remember her? And with the Moonlight, we've loved for a long time, and obviously a defending Breeders' Cup winner. So it's just like, dude, I don't even know what you do with this. Yeah. By the way, another interesting trend is Chad Brown or international horse has won this race every year, and not like that's cutting it down much. But, I do think Chad Brown within Italian is obviously the most likely contender. That's one of those guys that I feel like I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I'm 100%, 98% not picking an Italian to win this race. And that seems dicey.
Yep.
That stat, Jared, it cut out. You cut out 6 of the 13 horses with that stat. So by the way, of 7 horses is winning this race. You're what welcome. That says.
Okay, you're welcome.
Make sure you go buy that. You can't get that analysis anywhere else. Give us your money for it right now. By the way, I want to know, does anybody have any kind of excitement for anything like our good friend Rodney has had for Inspiral? I'm excited for Rodney that he's going to get to see her out here. I'm excited looking at these races because pretty soon I'm going to be on the backside at Santa Anita every morning, and I get to see some of these royalty when they get to ship in. So that's super exciting. Kind of like the Classic at overfilling race that surprised me. The Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, you see a lot of horses have first preference for the Classic. 3 Technique wants to go to the Sprint, as does American Theorem. So it shouldn't be an oversubscribed race when all things are said and done. But an interesting cast of characters in here. Jared, what stood out to you biggest from the Dirt Mile?
Kind of like it feels like the race that no one wants to run in. I mean, it's just like you look at the like at least on mine that I'm looking at, it's got like, a list of 8 different horses or so. That's like first preference to classic, first preference classic, it's like every horse has got a first preference somewhere else. It kind of, I'm going into the race like, yeah, I'm going to beat Cody's Wish. I'm not interested in playing Cody's Wish at a short price, but then it's like, you're kind of running out of options to use to try to beat him. Practical Move is a horse that I'm super interested in since that comeback, but still, like, it's going to take a big effort to beat Cody's Wish. I get that. I'm just wondering, and I know I know Halterman at least agrees with me. It's like you kind of starting to wonder if maybe he's starting to lose a little bit of his kind of, what he's been running, how good he's been running. That Whitney was too bad to believe, and even though I get he's going back to his kind of bread and butter, so to speak, he's never lost at a mile. It wasn't a good effort, and I'm wondering maybe if he's lost a little bit since the beginning of the year and last year as well.
I didn't think the horse or the race that he won last time out was very good either. I mean,
No.
It is a win. Trust me, it's hard to win races. It don't matter what they are, but you look at that race and you go, I don't think that projects real well for the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. But you know what the good news is for Cody and all his fans? Like, what is this? Like, what is he facing, really? He does, listen, Practical Move is dangerous, but we're talking about a horse that's had one race since April, and it was in an allowance, so it's not like he's a monster, right? Now, he could turn into that, perhaps, but it's not like he's some kind of proven commodity here, right? That being said, I'll probably pick him because I just don't want to pick Cody's Wish. But I don't like people are in the chat go, Zozos is gone. I mean, Zozos is a big time mule, but he could take him gate to wire, right? Like Zozos isn't any good, and he could win a Breeders' Cup race for sure.
Well, it just sucks too because it's like Practical Move is going to be too low of odds, because he's obviously the clear horse that people are going to want to use to beat Cody's Wish, and it's not. If you had a little bit better field here outside of Cody's Wish, then you might get a little bit better price on him because there'd be different options. But it just feels like if you're not picking him, it's like Practical Move seems to be the horse, right? Algiers, I guess, is somewhat interesting. Skippy, this seems like a race that Safi would win. I don't know, but I just feel like Practical Move is going to be too low of odds, comparably where he should be.
Yeah, the question is, who's going to get the lead, right? Does Zozos go? If Zozos go, if National Treasure gets loose, I could paint a picture where National Treasure somehow steals this thing on the front end. And I realize that sounds ridiculous, but
it's true.
If I'm scared of National Treasure at first, anywhere else, I don't care where he is. So he's not winning if he's not in the lead. It'll be interesting to see if he can actually get the lead. The draw for this one's going to be interesting. We'll see what Zozos decides to do. That to me is the linchpin horse, because it feels like if Zozos goes, it's between National Treasure, or it's between Practical Move and Cody's Wish. If Zozos doesn't go and National Treasure gets the lead, all of a sudden he gets put in the mix. And if National Treasure doesn't go and Zozos does, Zozos gets put in the mix. But to me, really 4 horses you got to decide from here in this spot. Look, Cody's Wish internationally is like 9-5 right now. That's not a terrible price on Cody's Wish. If that actually was what he's breaking from the gate, I think that's about the fair price you should get on him. But I kind of echo what you guys have said. His last 2 left something to be desired. Obviously, the Whitney did, but even the last win was not wonderful. And National Treasure, Practical Move, just the allowance win, short fields. Yes, he looked great, but that's got to be a concern too. You're facing a lot tougher, and then you're, second off a long layoff. So question marks galore here for the top picks. And then if you wanted to pick someone to beat someone, like I wish that Chargit was in this race. I wish Senor Buscador was in this race. I wish I could look at some of those classic horses, because I'd rather take them at a big price than I would some of these 3rd and 4th tier horses that are going to go off at 3-1, 4-1 that I'm just not as interested in.
Don't you think if Saudi Crown was in this race, I would have been.
I probably would have picked her.
I think I don't know if I was singled, but I would have gotten close to singling him. I just think he would have. Speed's been so good in this race over the years, and he just felt like a horse that would just love just going a mile at Santa Anita.
Yeah, inside speed specifically at Santa Anita, incredibly dangerous. So if you do have someone like National Treasure, Zozos that draws the one, that horse becomes a problem real fast.
What about this is weird to say, but this is where we're at. And by the way, if our classic division is weak, it just makes sense that the dirt mile is going to be weak, right? So this is not a huge surprise. But Skippy Longstocking, if he drew inside, At like 15-1, is he not
I mean,
interesting a little?
Safi outside of Florida is one thing. Safi outside of Florida in the Breeders' Cup in California is another beast, man.
Yeah, remember they do out of competition testing for several months leading up to this race.
All right, you talked me out of it. That's what we do. We talk things out.
Just a blanket reminder.
Yeah, everyone needs a good friend. Like we all have our guys, right? And Altimer needed to be talked out of that, and I need to be talked out of picking horses as well. You know, there's times where you need a good friend to say, dude, you're smart.
Can you guys talk me out of another one real quick? What about Dreamlike? He's getting better. He definitely ran pretty well. And you guys said, hey, I would maybe pick Saudi Crown. Dreamlike made a run at him at least last time out.
I don't hate it. It's price dependent, right? I want double digits, but price dependent. I don't hate Dreamlike.
Okay.
Yeah, son of Gunrunner, 3-year-old out of a tap at Mare, kind of progressing at the right time here. You could definitely like that. All right, let's move on. The Breeders' Cup Sprint, they still haven't posted the picture for it. And we will have a video for that out from somebody, Dr. Miranda. Somebody's doing it. So go check the website. We'll skip that race and talk about it for now. Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint pre-entries. Again, no surprise. This is, I think, the biggest one of the all of the fields, at least for the Saturday races. Anything that pops out to you, Mike, from this turf sprint race?
They can only fit 10 on the Santa Anita Turf?
8, 9, 10. It's 12.
12. Okay, all right. That's
better. But yeah, they only do 12.
I was surprised Laneway didn't get in just because it's a My Racehorse horse, and that would have been wild at the Breeders' Cup. This is a fun race for someone who, you know, probably not going to be on the Caravel train. This is going to be a lot of fun. You got to remember we're going 5 furlongs on the turf here as well at Santa Anita, not going down the hill, not going 6, going flat 5 furlongs, which makes a big difference. Man, I'm probably going to get sucked into Live in the Dream. I like the Keeneland race where you had an absolute runoff speed. The horse went way too fast, way too early. Was, I thought, impressive for a European horse, first time in the U.S. Turf sprinting specifically that wants to lead. That generally not a good combination. And to be able to show the speed that she showed on that day, I think Living the Dream has a pretty decent shot here. I would love to see an American jockey. We'll see what happens from a jockey perspective there, because I think that is an advantage, especially turf sprinting in the U.S. Don't sleep on Tony Ann. I thought the last win was very good. Don't sleep on Big Invasion. I think that's an interesting horse that's kind of getting back into form, one that we thought last year had a chance, that looked great at Woodbine last time. So another wide open race. Man, this is going to be another fun one here, but I think Living the Dream is really, really interesting in this spot.
Jared, Europeans up until very recently didn't do well in this race. And you can see as far as the turf races go, their presence isn't as strongly felt, but they still have a couple in here. Jasper Krone from Japan is in here, Aidan O'Brien, Archie Watson. Does the European horse have a chance in this race, do you think, or is it going to an American again?
Yeah, I mean...
American-based, I should say.
Glass Slippers is the only one to do it, which was in 2020 and kind of upset that day. And so 15 tries, 1 international horse. The one that I have looked at a lot is Jasper Krone, which is a Japanese horse. I thought they might enter this horse. I see that second choice is the sprint, but going to stay on the turf has been really good. I do think more than anything, because I think No Balls is very interesting here. You know, put it to Caravel. Did lose at Troy, but ran a good race, but just as faster than Caravel is right now. And I think going 5, the other thing too, you got to remember is, Santa Anita used to be downhill turf, 6.5 furlongs to this race anyways. But now since they've moved it in 2019 to the 5 furlongs, just as, the flat 5 furlongs on the turf, it's speed, man. It's tough to get past speed in this race. And so, I get where that looks like Caravel, but I do think No Balls. And if you can find a faster one, I don't hate it either. Jasper Krone is very, very, very fast. And so this is a horse that's going to create some issues with whoever wants to try to go to the lead.
Sounds like the jockey's going to stay the same on Live in the Dream from Luke Rawson here. Aaron, anything that stands out to you? Not necessarily a race that's so much homeworky like the other turf races.
Yeah. I think Motorius is really interesting. I think, Phil D'Amato on the turf in Southern California, that's a good, thing right off the bat. And horse won last time out at Del Mar. I mean, went to Churchill and got second behind No Balls, but ran very well that day. I think that's where I'm kind of leaning at least as of right now.
Can we pour one out for Twilight Gleaming, who doesn't draw into the race?
No.
But we've got Motorias. You still got that one we can do. So I'd love to see the Japanese horse make a yell get in, and the odds say that if you're the first one up, you're probably going to get into that field there. And then all Americans after that, they wanted to get anybody European or international who wanted to get in. Just come on, we'll give you toss you a bone here.
On the European thing, not winning that race or 1 for 15. Has a European ever made the lead after a quarter of a mile in the turf sprint before?
No, that's just it. Like that's why, I mean, that tends to be why that's not happening, because speed wins this race, and we don't see a lot of international horses on the turf that have speed.
Yeah.
Was 2020 the year that Golden Pal blew the start too? Was that same year?
It was
No.
Is that no? That was why Caravel won, because Golden Pal blew the
Last
start.
year.
Yeah,
That was last
Which,
year.
by the way, when I was going through and doing the stats and stuff, it as good as Caravel is, and kind of the things that surround her, of how elite she is. Just remember how big of odds she was.
It's like 40 to 1.
43. Yeah, something huge. All right, let's move on. Breeders' Cup Friday, and the final race on Breeders' Cup Friday is the first one. We'll talk about the Juvenile Turf. A great field in here. Plenty of international horses. Aiden O'Brien, Charlie O'Brien, Charlie Appleby, Arnie Delacour has Air Recruit, who made it in, which I'm excited about as well. And Mike, I'm gonna toss it to you. Look who made it on the bottom. I can't believe it. Talk.
Give me some of that talk love. Yeah, go back and watch Talk's last race. Never got a chance to run at Keeneland. Going to be a monster number here. Not saying the horse can win, but he's going to vastly outrun the 40 to 1 odds he's going to be in this race.
Okay, well, there's Mike's best bet. Aaron, what do you think about this?
Oh, I'll just be, all day watching these Charlie O'Brien horses, as you say, Magic. No, Charlie Appleby and Aiden O'Brien, they seem to have a pretty good hand here, so I'll go back and watch them. I haven't been really excited about any of our turf horses in this division, so I am going to lean European most likely. And I think we got a good contingent of them are here. We've got a pretty good little group here. So just again, not to keep repeating myself, but a lot of replay work now that we know who's actually coming over.
Include Talk's replay in that.
Okay, hold on, let me write that down. Yeah, okay, got it.
Talk. Oh boy, this is gonna be a great one.
The irony is the fact that Talk showed up makes me even more excited for Talk, because Grant Motion decided that this horse was good enough to run in the Breeders' Cup after that race as well.
He beat some decent horse. I mean, the 3 horses on the also eligible list are not bad turf horses that have been running in America.
The way I look at this race is you just gotta. I mean, I gotta do replays of 5 horses and just figure out which of the Aiden O'Brien Aiden Appleby or Charlie O'Brien,
the Charlie O'Brien horses. Yeah,
I gotta figure out which one of those I'm gonna pick, because I just think we've seen this as this is an international race year after year. It feels like, and I get that there's not any like stars seemingly, right? But I'm gonna have to look at these and see if there is one, because I'm like Halterman said, Agate Road is not one I'm interested in. There's a lot of I've not been super psyched about what we have over here.
I think we're all kind of agreeing here, and Mike and I talked about this on the Magic Mike show last week too. The Agate Road's a horse that we're thinking is going to be too low a value for us to want to touch, and a lot of it's going to be those connections. Damn, guys, stop singing the Kesha song in the chat. This is driving me crazy. Now it's stuck in my head.
In the morning.
Anyways, let's get out of this race. The Breeders' Cup Juvenile, a prep race for the Kentucky Derby, and you very well could see the winner for the Juvenile show up in the entry box for the Kentucky Derby. Whether or not the stewards let him race, that's a different question. But Aaron, Juvenile race, this one's yours. Take a seat, put the mute button on. Jared, your thoughts on the Juvenile?
Man, that was like a plot
Very
twist.
demanding
Everybody's going to you to let you talk, and then boom, pulled the rug right out. Listen, this is a race that time and time again we've seen produce quality Kentucky Derby horses. We saw it last year, obviously, with with the horses not running anymore. But I am interested with what we're going to see. Bob Baffert. We got some Bob Baffert options. Can he run in the Derby? We'll find out. but I do think between Muth and Prince of Monaco are super interesting. I like the fact that we have kind of the options when it comes to the Bob Baffert. You've got the Brad Cox, you've got the Chad Brown, you've got, as far if you're playing over here, right? This just feels like there's out of those, there's got to be one that you feel is a legit Kentucky Derby contender. And like I said, we've seen this year after year. The winner of this race, and doesn't necessarily mean that the horse is the favorite, has been a horse that has been very, very quality as they've moved into their 3-year-old year.
Mike, is this gonna be our next draft pick? Cuban Thunder. We had Walking Thunder.
Yeah, we could remake that song with Cuban Thunder there.
The remix.
Wicca, wicca, wicca. Look, I think it's Muth and Prince of Monaco here. They're the two that I like on top. I think Baffert has this race under control. Wind Me Up, I even thought ran pretty well last time we saw him. But I liked the fact that Muth was able to stalk last time out. I thought that was a nice developmental phase move. So I think Muth has an edge there. I wouldn't sleep on the Wine Steward, who I thought ran a really well second last time. Koro Neo, little interested in the Japanese horse as well here. Just an interesting spot to send this one over. So I want to take a look at some of those replays. I'm out on Timberlake. I'm out on Locked, out on General Partner, out on Fierceness. I feel like it's going to be a Baffert horse, possibly the Wine Steward or the Japanese Shipper.
Do you have any, is there any price that you would be interested in Fierceness?
Not what I'm going to get. 25 to 1.
Okay.
20 to 1.
Just as bad as he was last time out, you got to think he's gonna, he won't take as much money. But it is interesting that they went ahead and showed up here. Good Magic that year. Magic was like 9 or 10 to 1, wasn't he?
Yeah, I was trying to remember. He was 10 or 12. He wasn't like the odds that Mike is saying he needs on Fierceness.
Bolt Oro was obviously going into that race as a huge favorite, and kind of the point to that is we saw how good Magic was. The next year. And so sometimes it's about not necessarily how they're running right now, but kind of what you believe they will be running in the next 6 months or so. And I'm really with you on Muth, Somich. I thought that last race kind of woke up, kind of did what they've been wanting him to do, which was rate and not, and the fact that he stretched out and did it, I think he's going to loom very dangerous in this one, especially considering, it's at Santa Anita.
Don't think he's going to be the favorite either. I think Prince of Monaco breaks is your favorite.
Yep.
Do it. Love it. Juvenile Fillies Turf. This one overdrawn. I noticed another spelling error. Brendan Walsh, brother of Brendan Walsh, training austere. But another huge field, and you see a lot of first and second preferences, but those are mostly also eligible, so hopefully they get in somewhere there. Jared, what did you think about this Juvenile Fillies Turf group?
I was psyched because when we first looked at this race last week on Blinkers Off, Hard to Justify was not in this race at all, and I thought, or at least wasn't mentioned, and I was like, really? I kind of really thought this horse would really be a danger in this race, and so glad to see the horse is in. Yeah, I'm with you, Shoddy. I love this horse. Chad Brown in this race has been very good over the years in the Breeders' Cup, and Hard to Justify. I liked the way that she ran last time out. So I do think she's going to be tough, but obviously kind of goes without mentioning, you're going to have to, I'm going to have to really look through some of these, especially some of these international horses coming on to kind of get an idea of what they're about. But I do think Hard to Justify. I like the way this horse is progressing right now.
Aaron, your thoughts on the Juvenile Fillies Turf?
Yeah, I'll go European somewhere. Just trying to kind of decide what to do here. At least at first look, I'm 100% with Somich. You shouldn't say something like that I just said because you haven't even looked at it yet. But it just feels like another event where it's just like, I'm not sure about these American horses. I wasn't over the moon about Hard to Justify. Really, I thought it was good, but is it good enough to beat if there's a decent European horse come over? That's the question. Now, I'll say this, for the male version of this race, I knew a lot of the European horses, and I was like, oh, that's going to be tough. That's going to be tough. I look at these, I'll be just completely upfront and honest. I don't know a lot about these horses that are here, and it could just be the division, and it's like, you don't really think about or look at these until they actually come over. So it does, I guess what I'm trying to get at is out of the two Juvenile Turf races, I think an American is more likely to win here than in the just the Juvenile.
I agree. I think there's 4 interesting Americans in here. Buchu, Gallibrand, hard to justify, and she feels pretty. I think I'll have legit shots in this race. I agree with Aaron as well. I don't know much about these European horses that are coming over here. Only one Aiden horse. Surprising that you're seeing that. You've got a second O'Brien, a son O'Brien with Porta Fortuna. So we're gonna have to watch those replays as well. But yeah, this is a little bit more wide open than I think that we've seen some other races, and this is one where I wouldn't be shocked if you get a double-digit horse that ends up winning this race.
It was just a weird stat. Like, it's just like been a race historically. It's been dominated by the U.S. And I don't have any reason, because the juvenile male side on turf is dominant, and so I don't know if it's like they focus mostly on the males as juveniles on the turf. I have no idea. There's no rhyme or reason behind it, but it is a race that's been. I mean, I'm talking extremely dominant. In 15 runnings by the U.S. side. So I do think it's interesting. And it also aids in the fact that, like you guys mentioned, there's not a lot of international horses that and so that's interesting as well.
How many of those have been Browns?
5 of the 12 have been Browns.
So I would say his hand is weaker. Hard to justify nobody else.
Okay, I think to that point, I think you're right, because it didn't seem like hard to justify this was the plan. Like, and now here we are. So maybe that is because some of his other ones that he thought might be here fell through a little bit. That could be. You just kind of reading between the lines. Don't forget, Cherie DeVoe was an assistant for Chad. So
she feels pretty.
I think she's dangerous. That I liked her the best. That Woodbine race. Now, does Woodbine translate? Outside of Woodbine, I don't know, but that the Natalma, she was good.
She was good. It looked phenomenal at Keeneland last time out. I was really impressed with that horse too.
Yeah.
It can transfer well when they're 2, and they like from specifically like the Breeders' Cup preps at Woodbine, they can transfer those form well. We've seen them do that in the past. Do not sleep on Long for Phil D'Amato, French-bred horse. She has never made a start in America, 6 starts in France, 3 wins, including a Group 3. She's also Group 3 and Group 2 place. She missed by like that much in a Group 2 race. She's never gone 2 turns. She's never gone beyond 7 furlongs, but she was purchased for a shit ton of money, sent to Phil D'Amato, and entered straight into the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies turf. If she gets a top jockey to ride her for D'Amato, watch out for Long. So, but yes, plenty of homework, especially something once we see the fields, I think, we'll need to look, because there are tons of cross-centered horses in that race. 2 more left to go. Juvenile Fillies, amount of 16th on dirt, Kentucky Oaks prep race in here. Chattelist from Mark Glatt, a gate-to-wire winner last time out over this course and distance, but everybody wants to talk about Tamara. So, Aaron, I'll let you talk about Tamara first.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I think that's Dr. Miranda. I rarely get caught up in the chat, but that one got me. I had to pause. I hate doing that, but that was well done. Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. Do you want to take Tamara? If you want to take her, well, there it is, and it's over, right? Or do you want to get a little bit deeper into this thing? I really like just FYI's performance last time out. I've got some interest in her. I have interest in Candide as well. I thought she was really good. So I don't think it's a one-horse race, but I certainly understand if you look at this and go, you know what, that last race at Del Mar for Tamara, that was just too good. So I get it. I'm probably going to dive into it a little bit deeper than that.
Yeah, odds will be interesting on this one, Mike. What do you think about this race?
It's going to be one of my biggest exacta plays, cold exactas with Tamara on top and trying to figure out who I want in second. To me, it's just FYI, it's Candide, and Tamara, I think, is clearly the class of it. I think this is going to be your shortest price horse the whole weekend. I think you're going to get 4 to 5, maybe 3 to 5 on Tamara, and I think it's deserving. She's been proven over this surface. She runs well in California. We obviously know about her mother winning grade 1s. I think it's 4 straight seasons. So this horse is bred to be able to win this. She looks phenomenal at Del Mar. I don't think I've seen anyone run as well as her in this group. But this, to me, is one of those spots where if you can team up the exacta in a large field, you're going to get 15 to 1, 18 to 1, something like that. If you go outside of the second choice, and that's it's going to be one of my bigger bets in BCBC on Friday.
I did notice this. Kevin B's right. Vivi's Dream is entered to run this weekend at Churchill in the Rags to Riches. That's a Kentucky Oaks prep race. I get the feeling they'll probably go Breeders' Cup, but they wanted to see what the fields were going to look like in there. But anybody have any feeling one way or the other? It almost just feels like, I mean, the Breeders' Cup should be their goal with her, right?
Yeah, it's Kenny McPeak. You never know.
I mean, McPeak might be running her both. You never know.
Yeah.
Might be a prep race.
I wouldn't be shocked.
He is an excellent trainer for a reason, Magic. So
Hey, listen, I'm looking at that field right now. That's pretty much a prep race for her. She's 6-5, and the second choice is another McPeak, so she should have that.
I feel like you're gonna do one of two things. You're gonna go out here and take a shot at a race you probably are gonna lose, or you're gonna run in that race at Churchill, and then you're gonna run in the next one at Churchill on around the last closing weekend. I can't think of what the name of it is. And you'll have 2 wins under your belt, and then you'll either go to Oaklawn and Fairgrounds, and you'll start competing in that 3-year-old series. To me, that's the more logical of the routes, because you go here, you're probably on the shelf until February. That's usually what happens with the horses that run in the Breeders' Cup. So I'd go the Churchill route if it was me, but we'll see.
What'd you say, Mike?
I don't think
and you're getting smoked. I mean, VV's Dream's not winning this race.
No,
she has no shot. And I'm with you, Somich. I think Tamara is going to be really tough to beat. This is, I think, one of the most impressive horses from the juvenile standpoint that we've seen this year. I think she would have beat the males that day. I think she's that good.
Well, if you want to take a single on Breeders' Cup Friday, maybe don't do it in the Juvenile Turf Sprint. This is a tough race to look at. Overdrawn field, 2-year-olds going 5 furlongs on the grass, and a ton of also eligibles on the outside. Mike Somich, bring us home. Juvenile Turf Sprint thoughts, buddy.
It's a beast, man. This is another one where you got to dive into it. Got to figure out a post position is going to matter 100%. You want to have speed again, going 5 furlongs over this turf course. No Name Mets has looked unbeatable at certain times. We'll see what No Name Mets we get here, but that would be one that you obviously have to pay quite a bit of attention to. Interesting, Brightwork and Dreamfire both probably not going to be in this race, so that kind of changes the complexion a little bit. I got a couple European shippers. Generally hasn't been a great race for Europeans. To me, right, like just looking at this right now, No Name Mets I think might be pretty tough here, but we'll see when this actually comes out what it looks like.
Aaron, what do you think about Slider, the California horse? I've been pretty impressed with what he's been able to do so far.
Yeah, Somich and Gary here stole the 2 horses I was going to talk about. I like No Name Mets, and I'm with Gary. I like Slider. I think Slider's a pretty nice horse out there too. To be honest, every year this is one that once it draws the pre-entries, it's like, okay, I just don't have any real thoughts until these come out, so I don't really know, who I'm gonna, eventually pick in this one more than any other one. But those are the 2 names that really have kind of caught my eye. And I agree that this No Name Mets at times has looked like just a monster, but Slider being locally based and running well out there, I think that gives him a bit of an advantage as well.
Jared, what do you think about the Juvenile Turf Sprint, buddy?
I'm telling you, I keep going to a Crimson Advocate. I'm very interested in this horse, and I think this is a kind of the best of both worlds, where you have the horse that has speed and has won over here, is obviously based out of the United States for George Weaver, but went over and kind of won a race at Royal Ascot. It's pretty decent. Won the Queen Mary at last time out. Hadn't been seen since. So right, that's a little bit of a concern. But man, if that horse can kind of bring that class, continue to bring that class, I think she's gonna be really tough.
Since July, George Weaver might have been the best turf sprint trainer in the U.S. He's been that good. I don't know if people realize that.
Yep.
Yeah.
That go watch the. I mean, if you guys have, it won a big prize, but Queen, like, it was a nice effort. Now, obviously, it's a different animal here running this race, but I don't know what. I have no idea. Like, I have no feel for this race in terms of who's going to be bet. I have no idea. Is Crimson Advocate going to be the favorite? I don't think so, but I don't know.
You could have a third one, very well have a third George Weaver horse get in too, because Amidst Waves is the first one on the also eligibles list, and Dreamfire has first preference Juvenile Fillies Turf, Brightwork first preference Juvenile Fillies, and they should both get in there. So Crown Imperial, another good one to watch out. But yeah, tons of great horses in here. Another one where I think we're going to have to do our homework for it. All right. It was a great show. We went through this race. We talked a lot more than I thought we would, but that's a good thing. Everybody in the chat, you've been amazing. And listen, this is just the start of the Breeders' Cup. We have a week and a half, less than a week and a half now, till Breeders' Cup, November 3rd and 4th, Friday and Saturday. Wall-to-wall coverage each and every day at racingdudes.com and youtube.com/racingdudes. Kevin, I saw you wanted us to get our best bets. Come back for a different live show. We're gonna do that at a different time. But it was just a great time. A lot of horses to cover through. We've got a lot of work to do, and we can't wait to see you back at racingdudes.com. Go check out the Racing Dudes Betting Bible. Get that ordered now. It will be available once the races are drawn. People keep asking us, when's it coming out? Why can't I get it? Because this is literally all we know. Everything we just talked about and showed you is what we know right now. But as soon as it's out and drawn, we'll have that for you. Get the 14 trends that Jared has been referencing all throughout this show over at racingnews.com as well. Aaron, Jared, Mike, guys, any final thoughts? You ready to get to work?
Yeah, let's get to
Give
work.
me those PPs, baby. Come on, DRF. Get them out.
Yeah, what the hell, DRF? Get this shit going. All right. For Aaron, Jared, Mike, I've been Magic. Thanks so much, everybody, and we will see you next time.